with DISC as to what experiences you have, how much you know about it. So I've got to kind of go into a little bit of the basics, and I apologize for that, but it'll just give you a good run through. In fact,
You don't want to put that on the table rather, Rick, than bending over?
well, it was just, there was too much on the table and conflicting, and I've got my,
Okay.
I've got my thing anyway. Let's go with this. So anyway, to take it beyond that, I've actually gone and gotten certified in DISC and took all the courses and more in depth. And certainly we're not going to go too deep on it. And I find for the average person, for an average realtor, the main thing to understand is who you are and how to relate with who they are. Meaning largely, in most cases, your customers or teams or whatever you're running. So that's where I started getting a little bit more deeply into it. Now there are different types of behavioral things, and we've all seen them. There's Briggs-Myers, there's the colors. The DISC always appealed to me because I could understand very simply what it was and what it meant. When I say somebody's a high D, they're direct, dominant, driving, people. And the letters lend themselves to the thing. Whereas if I say I'm a blue,
Or a cheetah.
or I'm an ENFP, I have no clue what that really means. I get that the E is an extrovert and the I is an introvert. That's as far as I can get there without having to figure out, okay, what do the rest of the letters actually mean? Whereas DISC is really, really straightforward. That's why I prefer it. So, first off, what is behavior? You need to look at that and determine what behavior is, and conversely, what behavior is not. So behavior is the way somebody acts, the observable aspects of ingrained habits and beliefs, but it's neither good or it's bad. It just is. Your behavior is what it is. It's not, and somebody say, oh, well, I'm an S, so that's no, it's perfectly good to be an S. And in some people, it's more flexible than in others. Your values, your ethics, and your morals, there are all DISC types in prison. There are all DISC types in charity work and everything else. There's no right or wrong. It doesn't say how you make your decisions and your judgments. It doesn't have anything to do with your skills, in the sense that skills are a learned behavior. Same thing with experience, education, training. So DISC has nothing to really do specifically with those things. It'll affect how you do those things. Obviously, I don't have a big high C, or I would have been here on time this morning, okay? But it'll affect how you do those things, but it isn't those things. So when you say, oh, I'm a high D, so I can't do, no, there's nothing that you can't do. It's just how you're going to do it will change. Every person has a preferred behavior. It's their natural style. It's just how they naturally do. And we go about that in our natural style without thinking about what we are. We just naturally do it. And we will react naturally unless we consciously try and alter that. Now, that being said, when you try and consciously alter that, which most people can, it's for a shorter period of time. Over time, if you're trying to be something that you're not, you will increase stress, and eventually it will break down. That's why it's kind of important when we start looking at who we're hiring in that to see, because if somebody is a low C, which we'll talk about what all the letters mean, it means they're probably not a detailed person. Sticking them on your books is probably not a healthy thing for them or for you, because it's not their natural gift. Okay? They can do it. It doesn't mean that with a high IQ and some training and everything else, somebody couldn't go and be an accountant. But if it's not to their natural style, over time they are going to suffer a breakdown. 4 behavioral styles, and everyone is a combination of these 4 styles. We end up looking at a graph, which I've brought, for some reason the graph didn't print off, but I'll give you a sheet that if you didn't do the Tony Robbins, and that's an online and more involved. But if you want to just take one of the sheets and do it and then fax it to me, scan it to me, what I'll do is I'll just mark your thing and send you the graphs. But this is how what it'll end up looking like. There's a form of a disk, and then the graphs that we use to analyze, you know, what your reactions are. So let's go over them quickly. Ds. Ds are dominant, direct, decisive, driven people. They only make up about 3% of the population though. And people think, oh, okay, but I know a lot of Ds. In our business, there are a lot more Ds and the next one Is than there are in other industries. Our business lends for those two business styles, or those two behavioral styles, okay? Doesn't mean that you can't succeed if you're one of the other two, but do realize that there's a higher proportion of Ds and Is into our business, and they're influencing, inspiring, interested, intersocial, and they make up about 11% of the population. S's, stable, steady, secure, safety conscious. They make up 69% of the population.
Great assistance.
Okay. Now, just looking at that, and you think about our business, and you go out and you've got this nice young first-time buyer couple, you take them out, and they're wonderful, and you're wonderful, and they really like you, and then they go and see a house, and you know they've seen a few houses, but this is the one, and they say, oh, we really, really want to buy this one, we like this one, and what do? Our natural behavior comes out. And we say, oh, well, if you really want this, we don't have any time. We're going to have to cancel all the other appointments. We're going to have to race back to the office because you're taking offers in 2 hours. Listen, about having a home inspection done, not going to happen. There's already 10 offers on the place. And by the way, we're going 25,000 over asking. Who are we dealing with?
A D.
But who are we dealing with?
Not that.
We're dealing with, and you wonder why they start to back up and start go like this. They've seen the devil they didn't want to see. But that's what we do. It's our natural style to say, okay, I'm going to do my job then, you've made this decision, let's go. One or both of them are going to have a high S trait. Just the odds. 70%, 69% have that as part of their makeup. And a high part of their makeup. So, we have to look and say, okay, this is what I am. This is what they are. How are they going to take this information? How can I relay this information to them in such a way that they still feel safe, warm, and fuzzy? Because that's a big part of the buying process, right? Okay. So, listen, I'm glad yeah, it's a lovely home, isn't it? Here's the challenge though, and I want to get you ready for this, and please understand, I'm just doing this because it's part of my job, it's not to scare you. Okay. They're taking offers in 2 hours, and there's already 10 offers on that property. So for you to get this house, we probably couldn't have a home inspection condition, and I know that's a little bit concerning. And I got to be honest with you, we're probably looking $25,000 over asking. Are you prepared for that? And they're still there. They haven't run away yet. But we have to go past our natural reactions, our natural behaviors, and look at theirs and say, how will they want to be treated? Okay? So that's a challenge that we have. C's, collect, compliant, controlled, analytical, and sometimes if it's too high, you can drop the itical. Okay? And that's about 17%, but all the C's in the room already knew that because they'd already done the math before I could flip the screen. They already knew what the answer was, right? Because that's their natural thing. And for somebody like me who is not a high C, I always have to be very conscious of dealing with a C. They want details, so when they say, what's this going to cost me? And I say, oh, about $2,500 a month. That ain't cutting it for them. No, I didn't mean that. I meant, what's my principal, my interest, what interest rate am I looking at? What are the taxes on this place? What do you think the utilities are going to cost? They want the details. I had a couple that I just worked with last fall, bought a nice big place down on the bluffs in Scarborough, so it was a nice transaction. But knowing from our first contact that they were both high C people, they own a business, and when they gave me, we want to see these listings in this order, and here's the time frames we figure we should be, and of course they don't know the travel, I had to adjust it, and of course some of them aren't available, but when I got to meet them for the very first time, the first thing I did was hand them each a clipboard that had all of the listings in order with the times put on it. This is not Rick Sergison, okay? He doesn't usually do this thing. But they just like, oh, wow, this is great. This is even better than the one I brought. But I could see it coming. And when you're dealing with, $2 million, you kind of think, hey, okay, let's give them what they want, So, but they were both high C. And they just ate it up. But I realized every time I dealt with them, I was going to have to say, okay, so what order do you want to see them in? And is there anything you want to see again? Okay, and literally had to put my time straight out. So, here are the things that adapt and create your behavioral style. Your hereditary, it is somewhat genetic. Your role models, especially up until about the age of 8 or 9. Okay, you tend to watch those people that are important in your life and you tend to emulate them. And then the experience that you have. Now, most behavioral styles will, once you get to be about 21, 23, they generally set themselves pretty much in stone. You don't change much after that naturally. Although experience can change you, a death, a divorce, something like that, that could change your way of thinking and rewire you. But for the most part, once you get, and I've done this with, even with my kids as they grew up, and originally they were kind of not too extremes. Like they were just kind of low on the graph or not deep on the graph, if you'll see them later. And as they've grown older, and now they're in their mid-20s, yeah, the graph has expanded so they really know what they are. And I find that. Now, you can often, too, get graphs where you look and you say, and I've seen this only once in person, where essentially the graph was almost a straight line across. Like it was only minorly below the line and minorly above, so it was just really, really shallow graph. And I actually called a friend of mine who's also a disc specialist and said, I haven't seen this before. And they said, here's the thing. That's a person who doesn't know who they are right now. They're obviously undergoing some severe trauma in their life. And I said, yes, this person is a recovering alcoholic who just had a divorce and lost their parents. I said, they're a mess. Like, don't hire them, don't get involved. That's they're just going through a lot and they don't even know who they are.
Zen's got a condo for sale.
I don't know the reference, I imagine it's good, everybody seems to be having a good time out of it. Anyway, let's move on.
We're all right
That's
under
a
that
deadly
bus
comment.
there.
That was.
I'm sorry, guys.
That was an interesting behavior you exhibited there. Anyway, so we have the D, I, S, and C, and it works really nicely in a circle because of the traits of each. What you'll see here, and up the top we've got the D and the I. They generally are outgoing people. They're just naturally not shy, they're outgoing people. At the bottom, the C and the S's are generally quieter, more introverted people. That's just the nature. I can post all this onto the site. Whereas on the far side of the graph there, for me, we have people orientated, and on this side we've got task orientated. Okay, so that, and you're never wholly one, you're going to be blends of things, but this shows your predominant style. So I tend to be here, this is a little bit higher. I'm an ID. Somebody else can be a DI, and that really goes to what do you go to under pressure. And I used to be a higher D, I just didn't find it worked as well for me. But it's kind of one of those things that if I'm talking and dealing with something, yeah, I'll try and be nice and kind of tickle them with a feather, and if that doesn't work, then I take a sledgehammer between their eyes. One way or the other, but those are my two styles. I don't have any of these things in me. I have absolutely no S, and I'm low on the C.
So you don't care about people? You have no sympathy?
No, I'm a big
and-
high I love people.
No, you interact, but look at where your S is. You're not that sensitive kind of, you know.
Well, these are both people.
Yeah.
The difference is whether you're outgoing or ingoing.
Excellent.
For here.
Okay.
Okay, the difference, these people do not like change. They're very safety conscious. These people are much more risk-taking and outgoing. But they like people, they work through people. An I loves to get involved in people, and as a leading style is going to bring everybody with them. Too often a D cannot be conscious of people. I made this presentation, or a presentation like this at Remax Recharge just a couple months ago. And then afterwards people come up and ask me questions. And I had this nice two young ladies in front of me, and they just formed a team. One was an I and one was an S, and they wanted to know, gee, how is this going to work? And I said, well, actually it'll work very well. But what's going to happen is you're going to go out and get all the new business and be the face of the team. And you're the one that's going to keep everybody happy and build the lifelong business. So it's a nice match-up. And it's all going to be about people. So knowing that you're both people, you're going to have to get somebody or get something in place to take care of your tasks. You're going to have to put systems in because you're not naturally going to take care of systems. So you may have to get an assistant who is pretty high in the C, and they may want to have some D in it as well, so that they actually will tell you to get out of here and go do your work. Okay? And we're going to look at how different behavioral styles interact a little later on. I will tell you though that what do you get when you get two I's?
Nothing done.
A party. A party. No work is done. You have a party. Everybody had a great day and nothing got done. Okay, so that's the kind of thing here. So here's the personality goals of a D. They want control. You're the boss.
How about a double D?
That's not what
that
you're
has
looking at
nothing
right
to
now.
do.
That's very
That has
different.
nothing to do with disc.
It's a beautiful thing, Ivan.
But if you've seen one, you've seen them both. So let's move on.
Trust me, if you've seen one, you haven't
Okay,
seen
so I's, their whole thing is, if I'm not having fun, I'm not happy, I don't want to be here. They want to have a good time. That, if you've got an I that you're trying to motivate, is get them involved, get them having fun. S, as I mentioned, they want security. They want safety. They want a long-term contract. They want benefits. They don't want to take any chances here. Okay? And the C wants perfection. They want everything done right, and they never, ever want to be wrong. Okay? What's that?
I said, no wonder I'm so screwed up when I'm looking at this.
Okay. Task-oriented and very direct. An I is going to try and convince you of something. That over there. An S wants everybody to, they want to work as a team. They want to work together. They work together on projects. They're really good that way. They're super support people. Okay? And a C is going to make sure everything is absolutely correct. Okay. Responds positive to challenges and pressures. I's have egos. They love people telling them they're wonderful. They like awards. They like that sort of thing. And here's a difference. And you'll see at some convention where they're giving out the awards, and of course the team lead is going across the stage and getting their award and their ribbons on and everything else. And they're wonderful, and they make a huge mistake if they don't point at their assistant down in the second row and go, and I owe it all to you. Because they like appreciation. They don't want spotlight. They don't want to be up on the stage, but you better appreciate what they do. Okay, it's interesting because an S, given too much frustration, will blow up. S's tend to like to do this, you know, you have this shelf over here, and they take some abuse, you know. They don't like to make decisions fast, and if they've got a D as a boss, then the boss is saying, I need this done now, and I need it, and if they're a DC, I want it done yesterday, and it has to be perfect. And the S just takes these things and puts them up on the shelf. Until one day the shelf overloads and comes crashing down, and then, and I've seen this happen, where the S is gone. They get so frustrated, they get up, they go D, and then they leave, period. And I had that happen in an office that I was working out of. It was kind of like, and I had nothing to do with it, it had nothing to do with me. I'm just an agent in the office, and there's this explosion, and off the administrator goes, and we never saw her again. Period. Quit on the spot. And I'm going, well, yeah, I guess if I thought about that and was involved in that, I probably could have seen that one happening, not to that degree, but that was it. She was gone. She never came back. So, communication tips. With a D, and this is where I have problems because I tend to talk a bit. So, if I talk too much, D's get, and I was talking about this nice little couple ladies that started their team. Behind them, waiting to ask a question, was a young man. And he was basically kind of deaf. And they're still talking away. And I'm coaching. And they finally, you know, I finally get their questions answered. Yeah, I'm a D, I know. First thing he said is, I'm a D. I know. Can we go over there and talk though, because, you know, they're getting ready for the next presentation. And he started talking. The challenge he's having is he's a D and his assistant is an S. Which is a great mix if you handle it properly, but he was talking about the challenges he's having. I said, here's what you're going to have to do. You are going to have to make the relationship with your assistant a task. He said, what do you mean? I want you to put at the top of your page, say good morning to the assistant. I want you to put in on Friday afternoons, thank the assistant and wish her a happy weekend. He said, you're kidding? I said, no, I'm not. Because you're going right blazing through the office, you're completely disregarding her, and that's why she's getting upset. You're not giving her any appreciation, and she's a people person, and you're not. So you're going to have to make the relationship a task. Because he was raw D. There wasn't much else there. I could see why he's successful, but I could see why he would toss away people like... He was ready to barge through the two young ladies to get his question answered. So I said, so that's the first step. Consciously think, what do I have to do to keep the assistant happy today? And then make it a task and do it. So that's... Haven't heard back from him, hope it's working. Okay? So, I's. I left a brokerage solely because it was a bunch of D's and there were no I's. And the brokerage wasn't set up for I's. And I went to the broker owner, and I said, he said, well, what's it? I said, but you don't have any place for agents to meet, mingle, and talk. Well, we don't need that. I said, you're a D, you don't need it. All of us I's, we need it. We recharge that way. We recharge. How many of you feel that getting together just the once a month, if you miss it, you go for the rest of the next month feeling a little bit... That's because we recharge off of each other. We absorb each other's energy and we multiply it. D's don't. I know a top executive in one of the largest companies in North America. And they have to be social. And I was talking to them one day, and I said, so, just, you know, on a disc scale, so I'm a D. Oh, okay, because you, oh no, I'm good with I's for about 2 hours. Everything is scheduled to make sure that I am never there more than 2 hours, because at 2.5 hours, I get ugly. And I go real D. That's it. There's somebody that understands their thing, can put it on for a couple of hours, but is going to wear out. Okay? That's, okay. Profile factors, basic fear, loss of control. For a D, loss of control, the motivator is getting power and authority. The value to any kind of an organization is they're going to get results. They can't stand still. And it's all about winning. It's all about getting those results. Sales strength, they're good closers. Sometimes can be a little abrupt. Remember, we're dealing with a whole bunch of S's. And they direct. They tell you what to do. This is not a collaboration. This is my way or the highway type of thing. Given if they are not conscious of what they're doing. Okay. Just their natural style, they're just going to tell people this is what we're going to do. The I, our basic fear is rejection. We do not like the word no. We take it very personally. I got a call the other day from a young couple I've been working with, children of, and in our conversation she mentioned that her best friend, since they bought the first house from me, has gone into real estate a couple of years ago, but they were still working with me, and then I got the call from the husband, because it's wrecking their friendship, and they don't want that because their kids play together and everything. I said, hey, whatever. And I was thankful that they called me, because had they just disappeared, then I really would have been hurt. But I got to say, it took 12, 14 hours to even get over that going, I understand it, but I don't like it. So we don't like rejection. We love praise. We're great with people presenting. I love being up here, to be honest with you. And I like encouraging people on. Yeah. Yeah, some people, this is their worst nightmare. It's not. I love it, you know. So that's why I started doing more and more of it. S's, they don't like change. They want security. They are great team players, support, and they generally are quite organized, although not as much as these people. The last one, they do not like to be wrong. As a result, they will get every single fact they can possibly find before they make a decision, which makes them slow decision makers. You're not going to rush one of these guys or one of these ladies. If they're a high C, you need to give them the statistics. You need to show them the market charts. You need to show them everything. You need to show them what's going on in the area over the last 3 years, all of that sort of thing. But they will make sure that your organization is in order. Okay. 75% of people have a single dominant style. So they're an I, an S, D, C. 25% will have at least two. I find that surprising. I think more people have more than one in what I've seen, just in the number of discs I've done over time. But this is what the statistics are, what I'm, you know. So this is when you start looking at those blends. So you've got your D here, your I, your S, and your C. Well, in between that, then you have those, and I can post that for you. We won't go through each and every one of them, but you tend to be a little bit here. The very first time, one of the first times I saw this done, I was in a course, and this was just a part of it. And the presenter didn't tell us what we were doing next. She put a couple questions on the board and said, just take a couple minutes and answer these questions to yourself. Everybody got their answers? Okay, great. If you answered this question this way, I want you to go stand over in that corner. And if you answered it this way, I want you to stand here. And if you answered it this way, I want you to stand here. So there were people in all four corners. And some people were kind of halfway up the wall going, I don't know, it's this or this, it's this. Not too many people crossing in the middle of the room. But some were kind of, I'm not quite sure, but what was interesting was all of the people in that corner were in dark, solid, predominantly black colors. All the people over here, it looked like Carabana. You almost needed sunglasses. There were oranges and blues and yellows and lime greens. Here, very, very sedate taupes, lighter colors, and over on the other side, more prep look, just grays and burgundy and, you know, navy blue sort of thing, very preppy kind of. D's, I's, S's, and C's. That's the first time I'd ever seen that. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And that's just by asking a couple of questions and how they answer them. So, and again, this is another thing of the blend of, and the different names that they put to the blends. So why is it important? Knowing yourself and your behavior is the first step. If you don't know really what you are, how can you relate to others? And by knowing what you are, sometimes you can almost self-correct and go, okay, that's the D in me coming out. Maybe I should calm down a little bit. Why am I impatient? Well, because I'm a naturally impatient person, but maybe I should back off a bit. Just to, you know. Knowing others lets them deal on their terms. And I'm not saying that we are supposed to be something that we're not, but being conscious of how somebody else is then gives us that benefit of saying, okay, I know how I am, and as I mentioned, I don't have a lot of C, but knowing that my clients have very high C, I can go out of my way to make them feel comfortable. Okay? If we get talking about teams, a team is a blend. We have a tendency, we want to get together with people that are exactly like us. The problem is that's not necessarily, if we're two I's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a party, nothing gets done. If you're two D's, who's going to be the boss? And as a manager and broker a record over the years, and I'd have people come in and say, we want to become a team, and I'd say, okay, before you start dating, I want to see the divorce decree. I want to see when the team ends in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years. I want to see how it ends, because I'm the guy that you're going to come back to and say, fix this. Well, he's not doing this and she's not doing that. No, it has to be set out. So if you have two D's, you know you have to divide the responsibilities and say, this is your responsibility, this is yours, and don't meddle with each other, or you're going to run into trouble. Okay? So, it's basically making sure everybody's in the right seat on the bus. This is something that I just thought was one of the greatest ideas I ever heard about. It's about 15 years ago or so as to when I was exposed to the Platinum Rule. We all know the Golden Rule or some version of that, do unto others as you wish to be done unto. The Platinum Rule is do unto others as they wish to be done unto, which means that you either have to analyze what they are, or better still, frankly, ask them how they want to be treated. Okay? Joe did a great sheet, and I'll dig it out, years ago when we first got involved, and some people talked about DISC, and Joe was interested in it. We sent him down some things, and he sent a sheet that had like 20 words on it. Do you remember? Some of you remember that sheet? That was it. It was the DISC, though. And it said, on one side, how do you, what do you feel when you're making decisions? How do you feel? And your client was to pick 4 or 5 words down the side, and then what do you look for in an agent when you're working with them, and they were to tick off the words. Well, if you follow the words, the first 5 were D words, the second 5 were I words, the third 5 were S words, and the last 5 were C words. So they literally, it was a 2-second disc. Oh, well, I wanted them to, I think this way, I think this way, I think this way. Okay, so you're a DC, and I want my agent to do this. Okay, so you're looking for an IS, whatever.
That'd be good.
Whatever, but you could literally do it that quickly. I'll pull that sheet
that,
out,
yeah.
I've seen it.
That would be good.
Carol Clark
Yeah.
Rose did share that with the group way back. Do you
I
guys
have it
remember
in
that?
my list of presentation, I
Yeah.
can post it. if you want.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah, great.
I have it in mind, that's why I know, I
Perfect.
know I've got a
Yeah.
copy. I just thought of it now as I'm standing up here, though. So anyway, the Platinum Rule, hey, you want happy clients? That's the one to run by. Here's an interesting one, though, that gives you the interactions between the different styles. That's why I chose this PowerPoint over the other one doesn't have it. Okay, so D to D. And so you've got your human relations is a triangle, going from excellent, 1 and 2, good, 3, 4, fair, 5, 6, poor, 7, 8. So human relations and work tasks. So how do they get along personally, and how do they get along in getting things done? So D's and D's are fairly good in both. They can get along as long as they respect each other's boundaries. And if you can figure out who's boss of what, then some work can get done. Moving to the next one, a D and an I, the relationship can be a little bit better because you know, the D has to be conscious that the I's going to talk a lot. They get a fair bit of work done. Where you start seeing things happen is when you've got a DS, work gets done. You got a sayer and a doer. Like, this is what I need you to do, and they go do it. Now, their relationship, unless you consciously work on it, is not going to be more than fair, because it's a boss, you know, master-servant relationship, unless you make it otherwise. G's and C's, they don't get along. They don't get along. See, because a D, what's the nature of a D? I want it done now, and what's the relationship of, what's the behavior of a C? I don't want to make any mistakes. Don't rush me. Don't rush me. I'm not ready yet. So the D gets impatient with the C, and the C thinks the D's an idiot and he's going to make a mistake. And that's quite possible. So again, as a DC, yeah, the work can get done, but they generally, unless they consciously make an effort, aren't going to really like each other. And I've seen this relationship. I was in a meeting a few months ago, and the D and the C was there, and he was prepared, and he had reports coming out his ears, and he had all this, and he had about 2 hours of work to get presented. And the D just shut him down. Okay, well, we don't have time for that. What's the answer? Well, to understand, no, I just want the bottom line. And you could see the C was just getting, you know, but this is his boss. I spent all these weeks putting together all these reports, and you're not letting me show them. And he was getting really, really, you could tell, agitated, sitting in his seat. But the D, just not conscious of any of that. Just, I don't care about your reports. Well, thank you very much. That's it. I just need, we don't have time, we've only got about 10 minutes. Give me the short version.
What's wrong with that?
It was ugly. It was ugly. I'm surprised. The last time I checked, that CFO is still working for that company, but I'm surprised. It was ugly. It was very uncomfortable. Okay, I's and I's. We mentioned this one. We love each other. We just don't do any work. Why isn't this done? Because I'm an I. Okay. I's and S's. The work can get done, and the relationship isn't too bad. Because we're both people. We like people. And you know, when the I leaves the room, the S goes, oh God, shut up. But they like them. You know, they get along. But and the work gets done a little bit better in a sense, a little bit more friendly than with the DI or DS. The IS is a little bit, because we care about people. So there's that thought. An IC, the work can get done. The relationship usually is the C tolerates the I. And let's face it, the I's not listening to any of the details. The C's trying to say, but you've got to keep this in mind, you've got to keep this in mind. The I's going, yeah, whatever. And we're not listening. So C's really don't care as much for D's and I's. Understandably, because we don't pay attention to the details. Then you get into the SS, SC, and CC, and look what happens.
They all get along.
They love each other. Things get done. They work together very, very nicely. The problem is somebody has to direct the ship. Now there is one interesting disc style. Somebody that has a low D but has all the other three above the line are great workers. They're great managers, but they do have to know exactly what's expected of them, because they don't drive it. But because all this working together really, really works nicely, it works great. So, I'm not going to go through all of these. I've mentioned most of them as we've gone through. If you're a D, you've got to keep these things in mind. I can post it so that if you're interested, once you know your style, you can say, hey, how should I relate to different people? Because all of these graphs, they just go right from one to the next to the next. An S relating to each style, a C relating to each style, and that. So rather than drag that out and go through all of that, if you're interested, and you can go online and do the disc there. I also have disc sheets, and unfortunately, for some reason, the graph didn't print off. Did everybody get one that looks like this?
Yes, I know.
Where are they?
Are they? There's some in the back there. There's some here. If you want to fill out one of these and just fax it or scan it to me, email it to me, then I'll just quickly score it and I'll send you the whole thing back so that you have it. Just from looking at it, a lot of times you know, and you can tell who people are based on a number of things. As I say, how they dress. This is D. This is D. It's like I don't want to make any time to make a decision. That was this morning. I was late. I went black. Don't have to worry about anything. Just go basic black. I've seen people whose entire wardrobes has nothing but black in it.
And this is.
Like literally. I had a DC who was an assistant, and when I sold her house, I opened up her closet, and her black suits, black sports jackets, black skirts, black slacks, right in a row. She was a DC. Didn't have anything but black in her entire wardrobe, and it was all completely meticulously organized, which gives us a few hints then. You go walking into a listing and you don't really know the people. Okay.
Go look in your closet.
Well, you don't necessarily even need to look at their closet, just ask for the tour of the house. Okay? D's can tend to be messy. They don't take time for this stuff. It's just like, let's get on with it. Okay? I's tend to be very, very, you know, you'll see a lot of art, you'll see a lot of, you know, it's got the big dining room table because they like to entertain, very flashy stuff, nicer furniture, and I mean, because they're entertainers, there's status and ego in there. Okay? An S will be more of a homebody. Things are going to be, you know, more comfy, and then a C can be very, very, very meticulous, Spartan, and concise. So as you go through the house, you can kind of get a, okay, the color schemes, just that. You got a lot of bright, loud colors, they're probably an I. They like bright things, okay? So just different things as you go through, you can start to analyze how and who you're working with. And then you start listening to how they speak and what they ask you. So if you're out showing houses and they say, well, how close is the fire station? Is there a sidewalk for, you're dealing with an S. They care about that sort of thing.
It's kind of hard, it's a couple.
Yeah.
If you get them kind of one-on-one, you could probably, you know, go through that, but when you first walk in the front door, it may be, you know, maybe.
And you have to make some general assumptions. Okay, first off, the chances of decor are generally the woman's domain. So you're probably more likely seeing a reflection of her than him. I'm just, you know, you know, go out in the garage if you want to see if he's organized or not, and don't go in mine, please. You won't get out.
But I think, you know, what you answer your question, I mean, you just try to find who's the decision maker. And if it's more of the husband, and if he's a D or an S or what, that's where you.
Which is one of the reasons why you want to ask questions of both.
That's right.
And you'll find, I mean, how many times do we find this, where one oversteps every time? You ask a question of one, and the other one is giving you an answer because they're a D.
There's a decision maker.
But when they go home at night, who's making the choices?
Why? Because the S that didn't get to say anything is steaming. Because they got no appreciation. We went through this just a week and a half ago. My wife bought a new car. There were certain dealerships and certain sales reps she would never deal with again. Why? Because they talked to me. And I kept saying, no, excuse me, my wife, she's buying it.
I called the owner of a dealership and told him about the salesperson that had Christina run practically out of the dealership, going, I'm never buying a vehicle there. And I called the owner, who I knew.
Yep.
And I said, you got a loose cannon there. Because he kept talking to me, and I kept saying, no, she's buying the car.
Yeah.
I have a car. She's buying the car. And he kept saying, well, you're in real estate, and you know about sales, and all this stuff. He kept coming to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
she
several of
left
them did,
steaming.
because she didn't know what she wanted. So we went to just about every manufacturer and every dealership in town. Because she wanted, she hadn't bought a car for 10 years. And halfway through, she said, you know what, I'd really like a, the little SUV. Yours is too big, but I'd really prefer to drive some. Oh, okay, well then we basically had to kind of re-kick and start going back to some of the same. But some of them, she wouldn't go even into that dealership. I had to go out of town to a different dealership with the same car so we could test drive one. Because she said, but I'm not going back in there.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to sell her what they thought I wanted, or what they obviously wanted to sell. And they kept minimizing her. Whereas the dealership where we bought, and I said, do you need me for anything? They said, oh, no, it's your wife's car, we don't need you. Thank you. And she went in and did the whole deal, and she had to phone me a couple of times, do we want the extended warranty on this, and what about that? And that's fine, and it was completely, but she felt respected and appreciated. My wife is a screaming high SC. Okay, like, no D, except for me. She has lots of D for me. I, midline, and then SC for everything else. So we're complete diametric opposites. And when people started talking to me, I could sense her just, okay, I'm the one that's buying it. And they're telling me, talking to me about everything else. So as I say, those are the types of things that I use DISC for. If I'm hiring anybody, the very first thing I want to know is that they're not an I, because then nothing gets done. I want an SC as a good fit. So when you're hiring somebody, you always want to try and find where you've got your blind spots or your holes. And it's not our natural inclination, because we like people that are like us. So we want to get past that and say, okay, they're not like me, which is why I'm not as comfortable with them, but they're the right choice. So anyway, any questions?
I remember years ago when I did this, and I did the Tony Robbins one after I got the email from Zen. My profile is significantly different than it was 5-10 years ago.
Oh, yes.
Right? I was much higher in D.
Yeah.
Mine is EIS is not quite level, and the C is very low.
Yeah.
And I look at it because the S is the safety, security, all of that stuff, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, yeah, I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking of stepping away, but in 5 years' time. And so I'm looking at that.
Will you copy
More.
your wife's answers?
Will
you copy your wife's answers?
No, but I've been able to do it.
And we
through
do
machine
change
tech
to
now.
some degree through
Right.
life. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have the D that I used to. Part of that's experience, though.
Yeah.
You go through experiences and it changes you, and you start finding what's more important.
My S is actually higher than the other two.
Yeah.
D and I are equal.
Yeah.
And so the S is significant.
Anyway, yeah.
You mentioned go online to do it. Is there another online aside from the one that you suggested? That we
The
do?
only one I know that's a free one,
Anthony Robbins.
because usually they're not free, is Tony Robbins. With that, even myself, when I go through motivational, I have to pay for them.
It's not free either, because you have to give your name and.
Well, yeah, you have to give some
Subscriber,
information. That being
yeah.
said, I did it years ago, and I've never had
And you get free
any.
coaching for 30 minutes.
No, Robbins doesn't do a lot of that.
I've never had.
follow-up, but you just unsubscribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Things I found his to be not as detailed as the others. I found it strange. I did that. Maybe it's me. I came
There's
out as
two
a
of them.
complete
Have you done
chameleon
it
in that one.
recently?
I just did it
But they
before
were
I sent the
the other
email
day.
and check it worked.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how he compares how you adjust, like you might be naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just find doing it
but
this
you've
way.
adjusted to
But
what-
realize though,
There's like a 30-page
in
report.
adjusting, and this is where you've got to be careful to put yourself in a position where you're not a fit, and you get caught into that for a long time. So when I came to the new brokerage that I'm with, he wanted me to manage and give up on sales and everything else, and I, to a point now where I said, I'm not your guy.
I used to.
You know, nice salary, nice everything, nice perks and everything else, but I know that if I sat in that office for 3 weeks straight, I'd want to pull out a gun. And it would be me I'd want to use it on. Because I just don't want to be trapped in that anymore. I'm just having fun with my clients, having fun doing this type of thing. It just, I'm free and I'm not going to go back into a cage. So, free. That's it. Just, that's,
When you talk about freedom and
yeah. And I could do it. I have the capabilities of doing it. That's not a question. How long would I be happy doing it? Not very long. So, anyway, anything else? Awesome, thank you very much.